Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome to yet another edition of the new sparkling, wonderful Inworld review for the 23rd of March already, 2014, if I've got my centuries right this week. It is indeed a welcome back too, because those of you who watch us every week or almost every week will know we've had a few sort of intermittent weeks off during the last month, but I'm pleased to say we are now back here on our regular weekly schedule again. And I've got a funny feeling I'm getting a squeaky noise in the background from Skype because I forgot to put my lips on. Yes. He forgot his lips. Brilliant. You know, too many screens to watch all at the same time. And it doesn't seem to be. Yes, I think the lips are on. I'm pressing a button here, you know, in Second Life, trying to get lips moving. And, well, it's got a funny idea. Hopefully they are anyway. If not, I will sort it out a bit later. They're coming on and off of their own accord. So I'm going to click again. Anyway, it's the 23rd of March, 2014, and we're now back on a regular weekly basis. Thanks to a great extent for a arrangement with AVU TV, whose logo you see behind me here. If you are watching live, you'll have just seen a few of our intro clips, which actually turned out to be rather long this week. Those of you who are familiar with Second Life broadcasting and stuff like that may remember a regular weekly program a long while ago, really now, called Metanomics, hosted by Robert Bloomfield, known in world as Bay Sellers. And we just showed at the top of the Week in Review show a new clip by him, which I think he did for PBS. It's was about the rise of video game economies. We also had a look at a build of a virtual Dubai and an international airport build, Horizon. And we finished with a look at greener business. And obviously, if you want to go green in business, virtual worlds, immersive spaces are the perfect way to go greener in business. So a message there to everybody. And yes, that was it. And then we burst into the live broadcast, and here we are live. If you're watching this on replay, you won't have seen the intro clips, of course, but that's another matter. For those of you who want to watch this show on replay, I upload it copy to YouTube after the show's finished, but you can also now view us anytime you want on a new site called Slartist. It's SLARTIST.com, which is a new kind of project site associated with AVU TV, basically. And La Piscienne, or La Piscienne, I should say, describes it as a new site designed to highlight the mainstream media in SL. So it's very different from AVU. It's selected program content only, and we have a section there, as do Designing Worlds and all the regular sort of more serious shows from Second Life. Anyway, to get down to business, I've been looking at my main metaverse type feeds this week, and very interesting they are. We have a project. Let me see. Actually, well, we'll be talking to Maria from Hypergrid Business in a bit. Anyway, so we've got things like the launch of Hypergrid Business. Hypergrid Stories project. News of a new cost estimation tool released for virtual reality architecture. Moving on, Bot Girl, the famous Bot Girl, has been publishing quite a few posts this week. She started off on Thursday with the Future of Virtual Worlds, a prelude, and she did in fact follow that up today with a part two, so to speak. So you can find all that at botgirl.com. And just go back through the last few posts. Very, very interesting sort of well thought out articles that really go beyond just the virtual world itself. A lot of technology spouting up. The Verge had a nice report here. I was saying, could throwing fireballs with your eyes be the future of PlayStation? Yes. Very odd headline, that, throwing fireballs with your eyes. But apparently, we have heard, in fact, since the last show, that Sony have brought out a virtual reality headset, which basically can be seen as a sort of competitor to Oculus Rift. This isn't, of course, a crowdsourced, crowd-funded enterprise. It's one that Sony have been working on behind the scenes, obviously, to get in on the market. It does apparently, or is intended apparently, to involve eye controls. In other words, the sensors involved will actually be able to see where the retina of your eye is looking and shift your view according to the movements of your eyes, rather than Oculus Rift's thing, which is done with movement of your head, if I've got that right. Anyway, it's always good to see more of these things coming online. This has a special camera and software from somebody called Senso Motoric, instruments. Anyway, we'll probably look at that a bit later. Reports that Engadget talks about Cast AR, that's lowercase cast and then capital AR, augmented reality there. Cast AR's vision of immersive gaming gets closer to final production. You can find the article on this at endgadget.com. It's got a nice little photo there. And I must say, it's one of these, it's a bit more complicated looking than Google Glass, but it's not, it doesn't look like the heavyweight monstrosity that you have to put over your head, like Oculus Rift or whatever. And the focus here is augmented reality rather than strictly virtual reality. StrawberrySing.com has a lot of posts actually, and but she had one today, or was it yesterday, on a site called Gardens of Absentia. Now this is actually a Second Life feed item, not really belongs in this section, but it's basically Ipunin Pira is the owner of the gardens, and it's associated with something called the Pool of Hope charity. So there's a lot of events there which are actually designed to raise funds and awareness to do with breast cancer. So a little plug for that one. Starting today, although it may actually only be today because the blog gives the timing, so in which case we're actually over. But today is the date of the annual Story Fest in Second Life. It arrives as a sim called, well, I think it's a sim called Bran. Story Circle in Bran. Let me double. Yes. If you look up a sim, it's BRAN. I'll come back to this again, I suspect, with Maria later, but there's a report from basically a judge, a real-world judge this is, I hasten to add, has ruled against Worlds Incorporated in a virtual world patent claim. Worlds Incorporated are one of these companies that, I don't know what the polite word is really, but they seem to sit on a lot of patents, and then down the line when people start doing things, they sit up and say, hey, we've got a patent on that idea.
Patent trolls.
Yes,
they're called patent trolls.
Patent trolls. Yes, I was trying to be polite. I've got far worse words actually, but never mind. Anyway, good news in my opinion. Anyway, a judge has ruled against them. Yes, none of this sort of sitting on your patents that you never use until you want to make some money out of them. And yeah, I think that's it for my main. I'll just scan the list here for the links I didn't actually directly open. We have news for Virtual World's best practices in education coming up. We'll be talking about that more later. How the Oculus Rift is helping NASA find life on other planets. Well, I haven't opened that link, so it's amazing what we get here. Warner Brothers are apparently investing in a mysterious art form called machinima. Never heard of that before. And what else have we got here? Immersive VR enables safe and effective control of big, scary robots. That actually, I think we showed a clip last week, which was, or at least last week's Week in Review, that sort of explained a bit more about that. And Heart Botanicals comes to Kitely. We'll be discussing Kitely a bit later. Basically, their online marketplace for OpenSIM and sort of multi-grid delivery has actually gone public and come online this week. And we'll be no doubt hearing from at least somebody who's been purchasing costumes, nice smart business costumes, easily findable on that grid, on that marketplace, I should say. Early registration. I better open this for a conference, real world conference called Immersion. Is actually open. It's described. It happens every year, but it doesn't really get that much traction. It's the world's leading experts in immersion and immersive technology, and it will be from June the 6th to the 8th this year in Los Angeles. And you can find more about that at mediagrid.org. If you want to reserve a place to go down to LA to partake in that. What else have I got? I think. Actually, this one's quite a nice one. Sorry, it's called the browser here. We're looking at a post at IB Times UK. That's IBTIMES.co.uk. International Business Times, and it's a report on artificially intelligent 3D hologram avatars could be soon caring for the elderly. So yes, I'm getting there. Apparently, I can look forward to a hologram in my room feeding me and taking care of me. Yes, that would be fun, wouldn't it? Anyway, you'll find that at IB Times co.uk. And I think that is the highlights from my list here. So if I find any more, I'll come back to them in a minute. Meanwhile, I think it's time to hand over to my partner, Tara Yates, for her news roundup of the week. So over to you.
And the end of my name there kind of fell off into the Skype universe. Anyway, greetings, everyone. And from the Pacific Northwest, where amazingly enough, the sun has been out for the last couple of days, which has been very nice. Now, some of you may have spotted, since I always start off with a little RL Sim stuff, a news item last night or today about a major landslide in the Northwest. And anyone who's concerned, that is the location of that is, as a crow flies, I would guesstimate maybe 60 miles away from where I am, and on a completely different mountain range. I've actually been following this with considerable attention, just because it's local news, and I'll let you catch up with that elsewhere. But it does highlight a little issue that the Pacific Northwest has with the way our land is built and the number of places where we have steep, unstable cliffs and hillsides that you get enough rain on those and they have a nasty habit of sliding. And this is a particularly bad one that has happened in the Cascades with some deaths and some missing people still. And it's a very active scene, and they've got evacuations because of possible downstream flooding and all that kind of stuff. Anyhow, back in Second Life and Places Virtual. First off, some of you noticed there's something flying around my head. And this is Stanley Steam Pig. And Stanley Steam Pig is one of a collection of pigs that are available at the MadP Steampunk Gacha event, which is running until the end of the month. You can go over and start building your very own collection of flying pigs. I happen to have this weakness for flying pigs, and and this actually is a rare amongst those in the collection of at the Gacha event. The location is Da Vinci Isle, where lots of MadP stuff happens. It's where the last several events have taken place in their city, and this is in the park in the middle of that sim. And also, in a steampunk vein, and the other major Gacha event that's continuing to go on, and you can actually get into now, is the arcade event at Country Club Sim at about 3,500 meters or something. And I have a small collection of items from Contraption. And this round's items are old record players, gramophones, I guess is actually the correct word, because these are based on the cylinder era of gramophones, which was obviously very early in the invention of sound. And I have a couple of different models. Some of you may recall here a few months back that Contraption caught my attention with some fabulous contraptions that I had several of on stage that had all kinds of things that moved and clunked. And these also have levers and the cylinders spin, and there's things that move back and forth, and they have built-in sounds too. So you'll have to go check one out yourself to get the full impact. But hopefully you'll get to see one on camera here whenever Emma gets around to switching to that particular camera. So a couple of that for those of you who are into such things. Arcade is at Country Club Slim, and the Mad P Steampunk Gotcha event through the end of the month at Da Vinci Isle. Mal already has mentioned Sony's announcement of their new device, their new virtual reality headset. Let's see, there was something I was going to add about that one. My notes are just in terribly bad order. Well, I've got, here's a little bit here, and there's another little bit.
We'll come back.
Another spot. You know how that works. There it is, Project Morpheus. One of the things that caught my attention on there is, first off, be aware that Sony's device is specifically designed to go with the PlayStation. So in that sense, it's not a head-to-head, so to speak, collision course with Oculus Rift. That said, Sony is not offering any release dates either, and neither is Oculus Rift as far as when they may be commercially available. But in addition to the visual thing, eye tracking that Mel mentioned, what also caught my attention is Project Morpheus also features 3D audio technology, providing stereoscopic sounds in all directions in real time, depending on the head orientation, which is one of the things that when Second Life speech is working is one of the advantages of Second Life sound, is it is stereoscopic, so sounds come from the direction that they're happening. Anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. Oculus Rift has announced its next developer kit will be out in July. That's the good news. The bad news is they are completely sold out of the old one, of the original one, and they have had production issues that have basically put a halt to, I think, any further production on the old one. I know there were some supply issues here a few weeks back, but they have now sold out of what they had. So if you had notions of getting an Oculus Rift and trying to get into the Second Life beta testing on that, if you don't already have one, you're out of luck. And even if you do have one, that doesn't mean you're going to get in the beta group, as I am still waiting to hear something from them about the beta group and haven't yet. All right, let's see. Next item. Oh, one more thing. The whole business of Oculus and the Sony Morpheus and virtual reality glasses and that sort of thing is continues to get mainstream media attention. And in particular, this week, NPR, National Public Radio, had a feature article about Sony, and also kind of on the whole subject. So I am definitely in agreement with NRPA of VR overload. I think the level of hype is rapidly, if not approaching a state of hysteria. I think goes beyond reality, and is getting people hyped up for something that is probably several years still in the future before it's really commercially out there. Anyhow.
I'll just interrupt, Tara, because you mentioned it's getting a lot of one other link I had open that didn't mention was wgbhnews.org, which I think is there is a radio cast or a podcast on that site about virtual reality embracing the real world. It's only a short podcast, 4 minutes or so. It might be the same one syndicated you're talking about.
No, I don't think so.
Ah, okay, right. Carry on.
Okay. Interesting follow-up note on Versu, which is the interactive storytelling setup that Linden Lab has decided not to continue. And the interesting note was that apparently Emily Short, who is the original creator of the Versu code and storytelling, has apparently made an approach to them, or has had discussions with them about buying her intellectual property back, and those have not. She has said those, for those who are curious, Linden has now given me a definite no about selling me the code base and IP. So stay tuned on that one. That's strikes me as a real shame. Anyhow, all right. Things I mentioned a couple of months back was the plans for the winter games in Second Life, and those are being postponed until December. The organizer of this sort of feels that he might have been a little too ambitious. He had actually done a short postponement and decided to postpone them further. However, there's been a lot of preparatory work done. And the good news is, if you want to go play and check out the options for getting your practice in on curling, speed skating, figure skating, not to mention skiing downhill and all those kinds of things, the sim is open and the available items are there for free for your use. So it's Chamonix City.
Chamonix.
Is the look. All right. CHAMONIX City.
Virtual curling, here we come, dear me.
I think that's great.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I do too. It sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you have it. So it's still planned. It's just postponed. So be aware of that. And Mel already mentioned Storyfest, and Storyfest is going on until till 4:00 this afternoon, Second Life time. And coming up, beginning at 1:30. Luna Brandwin, followed by Corwin Allen, Caledonian Sky Tower, Big Red Coyote, Kaikilani, Kaikilani, and Sing Albatross are on the schedule. So those are all happening starting at 1:30, and they're probably in a break about now. Okay, and Kitely Market now available for open to all, any grid on the that's a hypergridded as far as delivery is concerned, and I'm sure that Marie will fill us in more on those details, because I think that's very cool. So it's now possible to buy from Kitely Market for any avatar on the hypergrid. So there you have it. If you've been dying to get some decent clothes or other items, you may very well now be able to do so from any grid. Let's see. In the Eat Your Vegetables segment, which is very short this week, on geeky stuff, there have been a couple of new release candidate viewers that have been made available: Google BreakPad and Stat Test. And don't ask me what either of these do, because I don't know. But what caught my attention is that in the addition of these, currently Project Interesting, which is one that we've had a great deal of fun with, and the SL Voice release candidate viewer and Sunshine are temporarily withdrawn from the release channel and are all due for some rebuilds. So, and apparently will come back when the release candidate channel has thinned out just a little bit. So, If you have been interested in Project Interesting, you're going to have to stay that way for a while longer. And for those who like to post direct from Second Life to Facebook, especially pictures, you may have already caught up with this, or you may not, but you can't at this point. The SL Share, which allowed Second Life users to share pictures, etc., with their Facebook account, and has been very popular among Second Life users who have no issue with outing their RL selves or have managed to maintain an SL identity. May be disappointed in this. But it's an issue with Facebook's policy about posting slurls with images. It's a violation of Facebook policy, apparently, and Facebook has slammed the door on it. So the lab is currently going through some kind of negotiations or a fix so that it'll work again. In the meantime, the SL photo upload and SL share will not work. But status updates and check-ins still do continue to work. So
Trust Facebook.
Yeah, trust Facebook. Yeah. Let's see. The Freedom Project we've mentioned a couple times. No, I guess that was mostly in the discussion earlier. Freedom Project, which is a joint organized by University of Western Australia, along with members of the Virtual Ability Group and the Center for MECFS and Other Invisible Illnesses, had an event with entries of artworks, and that exhibit, the public exhibit, launches today, and there's a ceremony this afternoon at 5:00 p.m. Second Life time at the UWA, and that's one I think is well worth a visit to check out that exhibit once it's open. Whether you want to go to the opening or not, that's probably going to be Lag City, but there you have it. Interesting project about artwork and film or machinima around the theme of freedom, showing how virtual worlds have in some way helped them or those around them for those with disabilities. Let's see. Another interesting new product released this week, or in the last week or so, Slink, which is best known for feet add-ons that people have gotten rather fond of, has released its first mesh heads, Visage. There are two of them available. They come with a HUD. You can get a demo, and I picked up a demo because I was very curious. And they come with a HUD that has a number of facial expressions, and the face displays emotion as the entire face, as distinct from the way Second Life standard emotions, if you use those animations, show that are kind of lame. But the thing that I very quickly pointed out, discovered when I put one on and tested it, if you're doing still photos and you want avatars that look more interesting or somewhat different facial expressions, they definitely will be useful. But if you are wanting an avatar who talks on screen for machinima, you can give the mesh heads, for now at any rate, the pass, because if you turn on voice and you have voice animations on, nothing happens. Your avatar may change expression if you use the HUD, but your lips don't move. So you can kind of scratch that off your list if you were thinking about it, those of you who do machinima and have people in them. They're fairly pricey, but that's not too surprising. And it's all the very first product of this sort on the market. So chances are there will be other things come down the pike as time goes along, and who knows, maybe somebody will figure out how to incorporate lip sync with mesh heads. And then we can really talk some serious, perhaps some more serious animations as far as machinima are concerned. I thought that was pretty cool. And I'm sure there's more here, but you know what? We've got some great guests on the show, and I'm going to throw it back to Mal to get them introduced. And talking.
Okay, yeah, some wonderful, great links there from me and from you. So we've got enough on the plate for talking about here today, I think. I'm glad to hear about the lip sync thing, actually, because the last thing I want to be called is a mesh head. Yeah, never mind. Never mind. A quick note as well that I'll just slip in here because I got some back channel alerts about it earlier, and that is that there was yet another upgrade to the Flash plugin during the week. In fact, there may even have been two. And apparently, the latest Flash upgrade is causing great problems with Second Life's internal browser, the WebKit thing they use for in-world screens and stuff. And the only suggestion I've come across is if you're having problems seeing this program or other programs on Flash Embed in World, then you need to go to the Flash site and what do they call it? So return to the previous version, basically, if you are experiencing those kind of problems. So just thought I'd give you a heads up there because I've had several different posts come in mentioning that. Right.
That's
So,
specific for Macs, I believe.
Good point.
For
Yes.
Mac users, I haven't seen anything tying it to PC Second Life, but definitely Mac Second Life.
Right. Okay. Well, for Mac users' benefit, that seems to be the case anyway. Okay. Well, let's move on and introduce today's guests. As I said, we have plenty to discuss. So where am I going to start? I'm going to start with some of our regulars. We've got Anna McMillan here, and destination, etc., etc. And in fact, she actually had one blog this week which had a very standard title. I forget what it was. Something like "Living in a Cell." Welcome. It's a welcome to Anna McMillan. Hi, Anna.
Hi, thanks, Mel. It's a pleasure to be back.
Yeah, we'll be talking, I guess, destinations and LEA and a few things coming up later. We're also joined by CallieDel Boa. I hope I got that, but well, I'm just going to be calling her Callie, by the way. So, who does quite a few things actually, but we'll be talking about virtual's best practices in Ed, which is coming up in just a couple of short weeks. And Callie, of course, you're the founder of the Google group, that Google Plus group that publishes on that, aren't you? So welcome.
Yes.
Welcome, Callie. Anyway.
Thank you.
And finally, last but not least, we're joined again by Maria Korolov. Hi, Maria.
Hi, Mel. Thank you for having me.
All right. As always happens, I guess I'm going to start with you because, all my headlines, half of them come from Hypergroup Business, of course. And, I did notice you had one interesting sort of rather personal blog up there in the week about the way you work. And you had a picture on it that we can review saying how you like to be on here. And I clicked on the picture thinking I was going to download the picture. And it took me to our own video. So thank you very much for that. But maybe I'll leave it to you to summarize the events in the last couple of weeks. I mean, I've got a few of your posts up, this immersive tech group to launch and the Hypergrid Stories project, a whole lot of stuff. So maybe I'll get a roundup from you first and then go into some of the details.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the Sony Oculus immersive virtual reality stuff, I love it. I'm all over it. This is like the most exciting thing that's happening outside the Second Life Open Sim universe. But like everyone said, this is a long-term thing. In the short-term thing, we got the Kitely Market, which I can talk on quite a bit about. This is going to be a game changer. And then in the immediate kind of present term, we've got we have a new statistics that came out a week ago. We have the Hypergrid Stories project, other stuff going on the web. And why don't I start with the stuff, the short term, the near term stuff, and then work our way out to the long term.
Good
How's
idea.
that?
Yeah.
Okay. So the big news on the Hypergrid a week ago was that OpenSim lost several thousand regions. Oh no. But the reason is because OS Grid, which is the largest grid in OpenSim, had a much overdue cleanup of its map. And what happens is that if you have a grid like like OS Grid, which allows anybody to connect a region that they host at home, some of these regions aren't up all the time. So, for example, if your cat turns off the computer, your computer shuts down, your region disappears off the map. So you don't want somebody else to come in and snag that spot on the map while your computer is off. I mean, that may be a very, very valuable spot there next to all your favorite neighbors and, everything else, great scenery, whatever. So what they do is they hold that spot for you until your region comes back. So, for example, people who only have the regions up in the evening while they're home from work and can spend time with them, don't lose their spots. They're in the same place on the map. Now, in theory, OS Grid is supposed to clear out unused spots from the map if they haven't been, active in a few weeks. In practice, they kind of procrastinate between running the cleanup tool. And this time it took them more than a year before they finally ran it. And over that time, a lot of people accumulated spots on the map that they weren't using. And some of it because they may have moved the regions to a new place or decided to move to a different grid or something else. Also because a lot of people abuse the system. They put up regions surrounding their own region so that they guaranteed to have empty water space around themselves. And then they never bring those regions back up. Or, and this happens, that there was a new upgrade of the new OpenSim software, and maybe they just haven't upgraded their region code yet and haven't reconnected. So usually within a couple of months, people reconnect these old regions and bring them back up, the ones that are home hosted, and the grid recovers quickly. But that's why we just lost 5,000 regions in OpenSim. So it's nothing particular to worry about. It happens every year. I wish they would do it once a month or on a more regular schedule instead of once a year and throw off all my statistics. But yeah, so that's what's happened. Their active users are continuing to grow, so it's not because everybody fled the grid. So let's see what else. The Hypergrid Stories project. I love this grid. This is a grid called Nara's Nook, and it's Hypergrid enabled, and it's a community of writers. It's not a commercial grid. They don't have a lot of stores. They're not trying to make you buy regions for outrageous prices. All it is a little community of writers. And what I like to do once in a while is they have a writing group that meets every day around lunchtime. And you can stop by the little cafe there and sit down at a table, and they have little laptops set up that opens up to a Google Docs page or whatever online word processor you're using, and you can sit there and you can write your story and work on your book surrounded by other writers. It is very, very cool. And this month, what they did is they've collected some of the projects that the writers have been working on. Stories related to virtual worlds or interactive stories of one kind or another. And that's their Hypergrid Stories project, located on multiple grids. And that's an interesting thing to check out. And the story is up on Hypergrid Business if you want to know more about that. So I love this group. I think it's a great example of what you can do with OpenSim. Is because the land is so low cost, you could set up these projects that do not have high ROIs. You're not going to make a lot of money doing this, but they're so enriching and so interesting and so culturally valuable that it's just a wonderful thing. And I really applaud them for doing that. All right, so moving on to the Kitely market. Now, they've been in beta testing for a couple of weeks, And just a couple of days ago, they went live for everybody. And I immediately rushed out and I bought a new outfit and I downloaded this outfit to my OS Grid avatar. It was faster. It was so fast. It was so easy. I love doing that. And then I bought another copy of the same outfit and I downloaded it to my Hyperica avatar. And this was a little bit tricky because some configuration issues that they had to fix, which they fixed right away. And so I now have a legal outfit that I paid for and I bought that was delivered to my own private grid. And this is a wonderful thing because right now, most hypergrid enabled grids don't have places to go to buy stuff. So all you have are freebies of one kind or another. And a lot of the freebies are good. They're good people doing good stuff, distributing it with regular licenses like the Linda Kelly freebies or the OpenSim Creations freebies. But you never quite know what you're going to get when you get a freebie because there's a lot of grids out there and creators can't visit all the hundreds of grids out there in the metaverse and all the freebie shops and all those grids to check to see if their content is there. So that's a problem. It's a provenance problem, and I've run into it on my own end with Heart Botanicals, which is actually one of the stores on the Kitely market. And what happened was I had a lily pad that I got from a reputable freebie store, and it was one of the big ones on OS Grid, run by somebody I know and trust. And a few years later, this lily pad was still knocking around somewhere, and I uploaded it to Kitely, and I took a picture of the build that it was included, and the people at Heart Botanicals were like, "Oh my God, that's our lily pad. You didn't pay for it because we haven't been selling it in OpenSim." So I took it down and I went and tracked it down. How did this happen? Well, what happened was, it is the after it was put up in this freebie store, the people found out that it wasn't a legal copy and took it down. They didn't just take it down off the store; they took it off the grid entirely. So it had been cleaned up a couple of years before. I still had in a local backup. So so I kind of missed that cleanup. Otherwise, it would have been taken out of my inventory. And so that's how it wound up on the grid. It was super embarrassing, obviously, both for me and for Kitely, to be caught pirating content. And we apologized to everybody. And I replaced the lily pads with lily pads that were created by GovGrid, which is a nonprofit group that have their own grid. And now I use lily pads from Linda Kelly, which are Creative Commons licensed 0. So they're in the public domain, so they're free to use for everybody. But I haven't been able to get Heart Botanical lily pads. Well, that's changed because Heart Botanicals now has a store on the Kitely market, and I can pay for their stuff and get legal, legitimate copies, and not worry about this. And this is of particular interest to schools, companies, nonprofits that have their own grids because they can't afford to have licensing problems. They want stuff that is legal, that is fully legal. And right now, your choice is Linda Kelly. I mean, Linda Kelly stuff is great, but you wind up with every grid looking the same.
Yeah.
Or or you build everything from scratch, or you hire creators to build everything for you, custom development, which is very expensive. And so now with the Kitely market, you can get commercial content, legal content, licensed content delivered to your own grid. The other great thing about the Kitely market is that there's protections built in. The people who run the company, Eileen Tachner and Oren Horowitz, come out of a security background where this is what they used to do. Is they used to do payment security. So they have it set up so that people can't cash out immediately, and there's mechanisms in place that prevent fraud. So if you are a legitimate vendor and you notice that somebody else is selling your stuff on Kitely Market, you can have it taken down, and you can also make sure that the thieves don't get paid for their illicit activity. So, and it's a wonderful thing. And it means you don't have to go around 300 different grids looking in thousands of different freebie stores. You can just check the Kitely Market to see if your stuff is there or not. And it's a wonderful site. It's very easy to search, super user friendly, and I really enjoy using it. So I think it's going to be a game changer for the users because now they can get stuff that they couldn't get before. But also, it's going to be a game changer for the OpenSIM business model, especially for some of the smaller commercial grids. And I'm already seeing, some of this with the comments in my articles. If you are a small commercial grid that's closed to the hypergrid, the argument you are making is that this is the only way we can attract merchants, because merchants won't come to an open grid. So we have to stay closed. We have to stay off the hypergrid to protect the content on our grid. And they attract users by saying, look, we have this special content on our grid that you can't get on a public grid out there in a public hypergrid. Well, now with the Kitely Market, you have a large selection of content that is available on a hypergrid. And for a small startup commercial grid, it's going to be very hard to make that argument now that come here because we have content and you can't get this content on an open grid. Well, because now you can. Now, large grids like Inworlds, it's probably not going to affect them anytime soon because they're big. They've got lots of stuff there. They've got big communities. They've got a lot of people doing a lot of things and being very active. But for a small grid that's just starting up, trying to make a go of it as a smaller version of Inworlds, they're going to have a very, very hard time making their business case. Because really, why should you pay money to something that's, pay extra money for something that has less features? Unless they do something very unique, like a unique role-playing game or some kind of unique content that's special, that's worth it to pay for. But a lot of the grids that are popping up are okay. And I hate picking on this grid because I'm sure it's a perfectly nice grid, but this grid is called Another World, and I'm asking the owners. So what's so special about your grid? Is it just another world? And they're like, oh, but we're nice. Well, every grid says they're nice. And they're like, well, we have great support. I'm like, well, every grid says they have great support. They're like, we have a great community. I'm like, first of all, every grid says they have a great community, but also you just started. You don't have any community yet. So really, why would anybody want to join your grid and create a brand new avatar and go through all the hassle of customizing it and everything? Why? But what's so special about it? And so far they haven't been able to tell me what's special about their grid. So hopefully this might light a fire under them. It's not just that you're closed and you have some stores. You have to offer something unique over and beyond what everybody else has. So that's the Kitely Market. That's what's been going on in the hypergrid. You have any questions about that before I go on?
Yeah, before we came on air, actually. I mean, I just remembered, though, you said how particularly easy it was to search. In other words, you wanted a business costume and you were able to put tags in or whatever to find exactly what you wanted, which sounds like a step up from Second Life's marketplace, for example.
Yeah. Well, this was actually very interesting. Before Kitely designed their marketplace, they went out and they talked to creators and they said, what would you like to have in a marketplace? What are some of the features you would like to have? And then they built those features in. So for example, say you have a business suit, that's your item. You can have 10 variations of that suit in every different color, like real stores. Like if you go to like a online clothing store, that's the way they have it set up. Instead of having a different listing for every color of it, or having a pack where you buy all 10 of them at once. So in Kitely, you can sell them separately as variations on a product. So that's something that's very beneficial to creators. You can also sell different permissions at different prices or with different license terms. So you can have something that's no perms at a lower price and full perms for a higher price. And you can also change the export permission so that if you wanted to just stay on a Kitely grid, you can have it just stay on a Kitely grid. If you want to deliver it out on a hypergrid, you can allow it to be delivered on hypergrid fully, and you change your mind anytime. That's really nice. And then you can there's filters, so you could filter by the category, the theme of the item. Like, is it steampunk or is it business friendly? You can filter it by color. You can filter by different kinds of attributes that products have. So this is very easy to use, very intuitive, very obvious, and the delivery process was very simple and very quick, and I really enjoyed it. Now it's still new; it's still only a few months old, so there's not a lot of selection there. It's growing fast, but it's still it's still tiny compared to Second Life selection. Um, which means that there's opportunities there. I've talked to some of the creators who are selling stuff on the market who say they're making hundreds of dollars a month. There's a lot of pent up demand on the hypergrid for legal, high quality content, and people are paying for it. So that's very, very exciting.
Great. Anybody else got questions, by the way, on that? So silence.
Yeah.
I got no. It's great, and it is
Yeah.
now fully public, which is what we like to
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on.
Yes. So the virtual reality, augmented reality, all that stuff. Very excited. I love this stuff. Now, I want to make a quick correction about the eyeball things. That is separate from the Project Proteus. That's a separate interface thing. They might, I mean, not Proteus, Project Morpheus. They might eventually integrate it, but right now the Project Morpheus headset is very similar in technology to the Oculus Rift. It's got a positional, it's got tracking. So if you if you move your head, the screen shifts. It's a little bit behind the Oculus Rift in technology, so it has a smaller field of view, 90 degrees instead of 110 like the Oculus has. It has a slightly worse screen. It uses an LCD display, and Oculus, the latest version of Oculus, the Crystal Cove, which you can order now for $350, and get it delivered to you in July. It has an OLED display, and which means that there's no blur when you move your head, so it feels very realistic. And from what they're saying, it reduces nausea significantly because it feels like it looks like when you actually move your head. So it's very exciting. The headsets, the audio headsets they're separate for both of those things. They're not built into the product. You have to have a separate audio for both of them. You cannot pre-order the Sony one yet. So you can get a development kit right now for the Oculus. You can't get the developer kit for the Sony one, and there's no news about when that's going to be available. And of course, neither one of them is available to general consumers, and there's no date scheduled yet for either one of those. So I agree with the folks who say that this is going to be in a long term, it's not going to make a big impact right away. And we also haven't seen what Microsoft is going to come up with. There's stories out there right now that Microsoft is also looking at the space.
Yes,
So I think it's going to be very interesting. So we're going to have a couple of big players in it. Microsoft and with the Xbox, and Sony for the PlayStation, and the Oculus Rift for the PC. Games are going to switch over first. We're going to have simulations, like Ford is using it already, NASA's using it. The Navy's using the Oculus Rift. And then I think over time, they're going to figure out how to use it for business applications. and it's going to go mainstream, but it'll be a while. So there's time for us to get our business models in place.
Yeah.
So, but the window's
There-
closing. The window's closing rapidly.
Yeah, well, the media coverage that this stuff is getting would seem to imply that maybe it may die out, but they're really playing it up at the moment. There is another one too, isn't there? I think that actually, the name escapes me, but I think I was reading about during the week where it incorporates projectors that actually project
Oh,
the image straight onto the retina, which is supposed to be
yeah,
an
I did a
improvement.
story about this Oculus Rift alternatives. There's a whole bunch of them. There's one where you take your regular cell phone and drop it into this case, and um,
Ooh.
and you get like 3D. For example, um, there's 3D headspace getting crowded. The article I did on this was back in October, so I talked about the cast air and some of these. Right now, you've got the only actual usable practical one is the Oculus Rift. The others don't really work very well, are not immersive, are not usable. The are not available to the public, um, or are just extremely early on.
Mm.
The cast air it is a miniature 3D projector that you wear on your head. It projects something into space in front of you.
Mm.
It's so that falls more into the augmented reality category where you know the now I'm a little torn about this. I mean, augmented reality has an advantage over virtual reality because you don't have this big bulky headset that shuts out the entire world.
Mm.
But because you're not shutting out the entire world, you're not transported to a new place either. So because you still see your regular world around you.
It's a bit like these new car things where the front windscreen is AR and it's information delivery that's
Yeah, it's
transparent.
Google Glass.
Yeah.
It's like Google Glass. It tells you somebody's name when you meet them for the first time and you forgot who they are, or if you meet them for the 10th time and you still don't remember who they are. It can, if you're walking through a architectural ruin, it could show you what it looked like when it was still, up and that what it looked like 1,000 years ago, what was still using it. So augmented reality has some great applications. In business, it's great because like if you're fixing a part, augmented reality could immediately bring up the diagram of what it looks like on the inside. If you're traveling through a warehouse and you have to drop off a package, augmented reality would immediately tell you where the package is supposed to go, so you're hands free. And I've tried out devices. I was at a tech conference lately. And I tried out some devices that were doing just that. So it's very useful, but it's not a new world.
No.
So it's an add-on to the existing world, a very useful add-on, but an add-on. Whereas virtual reality, you're totally in there, and you're in a different place, which is very immersive. It's very powerful. It's very interesting. It's very challenging because we're talking totally new interface design mechanisms, and so who knows? We don't even know yet. Right now. It's still being all that stuff is still being invented. So if you want to help invent the future, this is where you want to like get in on it, because right now is your name will go down as the creator of this and this and this and this because those things are being created right now. I think it's a very exciting time to get into it.
I'm going to invent a pair of goggles that can change from being transparent AR to opaque VR.
Oh, very
switch.
nice.
Yeah.
No, what you should have it be linked to motion sensors. So if somebody walks up next to you, it will go partially transparent. So you can see that somebody is like creeping up on you. Because one of the funniest videos is PewDiePie. He's a YouTube channel guy who does video game reviews. And he's been doing a lot with Oculus Rift. And he was playing this horror game where he's sitting in this Oculus Rift and it's really scary. and his girlfriend came up and and tapped him on the shoulder or something, and he was
Jumps
just
out
like,
of the screen. Yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah.
yes, yeah. So
I mean,
I think
part of the hype at the moment is we've had two. We had the Consumer Electronics Show, didn't we? And we had is it GDC more recently?
yes.
And so we've
So
had two of these shows that have been
yes, so the
just
Oculus won Best of Show at the Consumer Electronics Show.
right.
And then Project Morpheus was, of course, the number one thing everybody talked about at the developers show that was just last week.
Right.
Yeah. So
That's
it's very definitely it's getting a lot. It's not so much mainstream hype. I mean, there were a couple of stories in the mainstream, a Forbes story, a Fortune story, PBS story. It's much more of in the technical blogs that it's being covered, which makes sense. So that for the average user, it's a nice thing to know what's going to come down the line later. But for the technology people who are working on technology, this is really important stuff for them to know, because this is the next platform. This is the next infrastructure of the web. This is the future we're going to live in. So the technologists really need to stay on top of it. And so I think that the media coverage actually, I think, has been pretty proportional. It hasn't been like totally, constantly everywhere you look, there's this AR coverage. Um, so we had a demo on Jimmy Fallon, and part of his tech demo kind of things, and a couple of stories now that Sony has come out. I think once the consumer products hits the market, we're gonna see a lot more mainstream coverage of this.
Mm. Yeah, the story's going to go on and on. So I think it's exciting times, but I kind of think of all these as individual gadgets rather than anything that's going to become ubiquitous. And
Yeah,
I'm just waiting for somebody to come up with the magic formula that kind of incorporates all these different technologies. The leaps, the emotion movement, the immersive VR, and all of it.
Yeah, the way that Apple did it with they took the 2D graphical interface, they took the mouse, they combined it with their displays, with the laser printers and everything,
Mm.
and they made a package of the graphical user interface package, which
Yeah.
Microsoft then copied. I guess Apple copied it from Xerox PARC, but we don't have that yet. I think we're still a few years away from that. Once we hit that point, then we're going to see massive explosion of hype. We're going to see magazines getting an inch thick like they were during the dot-com boom. We'll see whole new publications springing up because people will need to learn about this, and it will be a major transformation in the way the world works. So we'll need that coverage, but that's a few years away. But I'm definitely looking forward to it. As a journalist, I'm very much looking forward to it.
It's almost a matter of what becomes ubiquitous. I know somebody's working on the idea of a kind of magic wand thing that like the gesture thing that you will wave to do things. And I went to collect something. It was a few weeks ago now. It was not the first time it's happened. And I was in there and I looked up something on the iPad, and the iPad wasn't strange to them. They knew that I was holding an iPad. But what was strange to them was the fact I was using a stylus with it, and I always use a stylus with it. I don't like doing the finger pinch and whatever. It's just so much more natural to have a stylus, and they seem to think this was something really obvious and but unusual, that I had a stylus. And so there's odd things, that you never quite sure what's going to be ubiquitous or not, whether it's going to be the fingers or the stylus in that case. So it's very odd.
I have a feeling it's not going to be the stylus because everybody always loses them.
Yes, they are a bit.
So,
yeah.
What I think is we're going to have a combination of gestures and voice control where you point your finger and you say apparatus or whatever, and and the thing you want will just appear out of the air in front of you.
I actually, you've just reminded me. I got but last time you were here, we were talking about SL Go and everything, and I finally got a branded Android thing from one of the supermarkets here, which was getting rave reviews, and it is actually a good little machine. I play with SL Go, and I've also downloaded Lumia, and quite frankly, I prefer Lumia to SL Go. And not to mention the fact it's free; it's just easier.
Yeah.
So, but what is odd, and they just launched last week the Chromecast stick in the UK. Now I'm used to using Apple TV to send stuff to the screen, but what I didn't realize is that you can open, I think it's called Google Now, and you just talk at the machine, and it says, "Play me some music." And it randomly goes to Google Play and plays some music. So if I change from my radio station on the amplifier, to the Chromecast, and then I said, "Play me some music, Google," and they do. They don't seem to have quite got the choice of music right yet, but I mean, they're getting there. It's the start of something. The fact that I can just speak into the tablet, and the tablet launches Google Play on the on the Chromecast. Wonderful stuff.
One of the science fiction writers had a saying that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Absolutely.
And
yeah,
we are on the cusp of all of us being Harry Potter style magicians. We could move our hands and say magic words, and things will just happen all around us.
I've ever since I had the iPad. I mean, mine's rather an old one now, but I mean, I've probably had it 3 years or something. And for the life of me, even now occasionally, but for the first year or two, I would sometimes just do a sort of quick flash and think I'm living in science fiction, because although I got used to it within a couple of months, sometimes you just have that flash and think, crumbs, that thing is there in front of me, and it does all this stuff. I never had that.
I'm still amazed. I'm still amazed by it.
Yeah, I never had that with computers per se, but to see a device that is just so simple like that does so much, it changes everything, including so Second Life looks good in Lumia, I must say. Although it doesn't, you can't Chromecast that unfortunately yet, because then you could have Second Life on the big screen, which would be great. Anyway, let's move on. There are a couple of your other things here. You've, one thing that comes to mind about you've got the new cost estimation tool release, virtual reality architecture you covered.
That's a sales gimmick.
I wondered about that because it's John Charles, the
basically, if you want to hire his company to do a virtual architecture, a virtual environment for your architectural project, there's a bunch of sliders you can move around and play with it to find out how many thousands or tens of thousands of dollars it's going to cost you. So it's a sales thing. It gives you kind of a ballpark estimate of how much these things should cost. So it's a nice if you're a corporate kind of client, but not really for the end user.
Okay, and the other thing I've got, I think you did have a post on this. So I've got Karen Laval's post up on this. It's the judgment against Worlds Incorporated. This is quite major, isn't it? If it's a precedent, anyway.
I haven't written about it, but I've read about it, and I do think it's a great thing that the courts are finally starting to throw out some of these really, really stupid patents. And especially patents that are so generic. I mean, listen to this. This is a method for enabling a first user to interact with other users in a virtual space where the first user and other users each have an avatar. Oh my God! How could you patent that? That's like straight out of like every science fiction book ever written.
Yeah.
The idea that these simple concepts that are already out there, somebody is patenting them and suing other people for infringing them is just insane. And I'm really, really glad to see a little bit of sanity returning to this.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody should be patenting these things, it should be the science fiction writers that dream it up in the first place, not people that then rip it off and grab a patent for it. Yeah.
Oh God,
So
no! Imagine if like the science Arthur C. Clarke had patented the idea of a space satellite.
oh,
No,
now I read in the news during the week. I'm getting off track here a bit, but Arthur C. Clarke, of course, he imagined in one of his novels the space elevator,
yeah.
and
Well,
that is
I don't want it
they're
to be
finally planning to build it, which is amazing. It probably won't be out for 50 years or something, but they've worked out all the mechanics, and how they're actually going to build it, so you won't have to launch rockets anymore to get to satellites. If somebody dreams it up and writes about it, especially somebody like Arthur C. Clarke, you bet your life somebody's going to think, well, how can we do that?
right.
And decades down the line, you suddenly think, oh, it is possible after all.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else immediately springs to mind for you, Maria?
Let's see.
Move on to our.
Yeah. That was my big stuff. I mean, there's the stuff that I'm thinking about business models. But that was, like you said, that was like a little bit of a personal thing.
Yeah.
And but I think this is a good time for a lot of people to start thinking about, let's experiment with some business models in OpenSim. Because even if OpenSim itself doesn't go anywhere and it's replaced by something Sony creates or Apple creates or whatever, the experience of having done that, I think, is going to be super valuable, and you're going to be able to migrate your content to another platform anyway. So I think that you're not going to be like total loss. You're going to have a head start on everybody else by having the experience here in OpenSim. Yep.
Okay, let me move on to Callie. Callie's never been on this show, so I'll say again, welcome, Callie.
Thank you.
Checking your voices on. You haven't given up on
Yes.
us. Now, it's funny because Maria mentioned, her home grid. Well, she's her own grid, but we were talking about OS Grid, and OS Grid tends to be my home grid too. And Maria, of course, is. This is my segue. The second day of Virtual World's Best Practices, which is coming up in a week, all the presentations on OS Grid, and both Maria here will be presenting a keynote, and Justin Carl-Clacy on the same day. So I was actually talking with Felon and co last night about the sort of broadcast arrangements of the keynotes, so it's all fresh in my mind. But you, of course, are heavily involved with VWP, aren't you, yourself? And you launched the VWP Google group. I never. It's a Google Plus group anyway.
Yes, it's Google Plus group.
Yes. Is that getting a lot of traction? Is a lot of members?
Actually, it is. We got 160 members, I believe, right now, and it's really taken off. People are talking to each other, and we're getting a lot of our second to none volunteers from there. And you kind of stole my fire there with the keynote speakers, but that's okay. Because we also have Philip Rosendale, who's going to be coming from High Fidelity, and he's the founder of Second Life. And he'll be doing his keynote speech Wednesday, April 9th at 7 a.m. SLT. So it's going to be on Closing the Gap, Virtual Reality in Education, which I think is awesome. It's about time that people started taking virtual reality serious in some aspects, especially with education. And this is my 7th year with Virtual World's Best Practices in Education. So it's very exciting.
You go back to the Fleet days then.
Oh, yeah. I was a moderator my very first year. I stood on the stage and took questions. So it's changed a lot. It's changed a lot, and it's gotten much better. We're shooting for a lot of quality this year. We have some really very exciting things. And, of course, Maria, you mentioned, is going to be a keynote speaker as well. And our builds are going to be up next week. And we're actually having invited guests who can actually go to the open sim grid and the Second Life builds. They're not really open to the public, but they will be open to invited guests and invited press members. And if we have any people out there that fall in that category, definitely contact Lori Von Luster, and it's LVLUSTRE@gmail.com. And she can hook you up with a guided tour and see the builds. Basically, connections isn't just all about connections between people, it's also connections between writing on a cave wall to hieroglyphics to scrolls to books to PCs. So there's all different aspects of connections. And it really gets very big because we're also connected to the universe. So that's on an atomic level. And it's really very exciting, some of the things that people are coming up with. I think it's going to be a very interesting year, and I can't wait to see the builds myself. I haven't had a chance to get over there. We've been busy shooting the promo machinima,
Oh, I
and that
saw.
should be.
Yeah, I saw your mention of that earlier, so, on one of the posts that was coming in. I think you were. It's on there. It's on. It was on a sim you were actually filming, it wasn't it? The name of the sim is
Uh,
on the tip of my tongue, but yeah.
Svarga? Is
Schvalga,
that how
that's it. Yeah, Schvalga.
Yeah.
That's how I pronounce it. Yeah, a great build. That
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
It is. It is. I've never been there before.
Oh.
19 people and we got a little lagged out though, but anyway, I guess I'm spoiled by some of the new technology. But no, it's very exciting. We're still doing it, so anybody who wants to, tomorrow at noon we're going to be over at Rockcliffe, and we still need people because people are part of our connections, and
I
so that's
can.
very exciting.
I love
Yes.
these wonderful words, like connections that can be sort of interpreted greatly. I need to interrupt here. Dirk McKinnon has mentioned that there's getting no audio on the stream on the channel as we're live, and I know Lapasian, who's also in the channel, mentioned that earlier. For those of you watching live at live stream, maybe you'd like to put into the chat room if you are having problems. Okay, Lap says he hears it fine now. Okay, yeah, just a technical thing. Basically, I want to check that most people are hearing it. We will have the recording anyway. Right, sorry about that. Yeah, so tell me, I've probably pinched the thing here. We also have a keynote, don't we, from Ebe. Ebe is the right pronunciation. That's on Friday.
Yes.
Which
Yes,
will
that's
be
really exciting.
that's going to be his first keynote, at least since taking up the job at Linden. So, yeah.
Well, I think they're all starting to take virtual worlds and education more seriously. Basically, I took a course here. I got 3 college credits. That was kind of cool, and it was on wind turbine and versus kilowatt hours. So it was very interesting course, and just to see what wind turbines out on the water could produce in kilowatt hours and how much money they actually save. I mean, how you can power your house with just nature rather
Yeah.
than consuming fuels and things like that. So taking education seriously in virtual worlds, any virtual world, because it's so immersive, and it actually the key is it hits the 4 basic learning styles: the visual, verbal, nonverbal, auditory, and tactile. Because even though you're not physically touching things, your avatar is, and you
Yeah.
kind of relate to that. And actually, speaking about the Ocular Swift, a long time ago I read a story, and it was about bodysuits. And I'm kind of waiting for a virtual bodysuit to come out where somebody in London will tap me in the shoulder, and I'll feel it here in the United States. So
Yes.
it's going to happen.
I always have long before Second Life, and I'm talking about 90s, maybe 80s or something like that. Oh, I sort of saw this stuff coming, but in a way, But I always thought it was going to be the Lycra bodysuit with like nodes on it that would simply allow me to interface. I hadn't
I think
considered.
that'll take a little bit longer and
Yeah,
be a little more expensive,
I mean,
you know.
it's just sort of been done at the moment with motion capture animation, of course. But it just seemed a natural thing that you have a nice lightweight bodysuit, you strap it on, and you're interfacing. But then we got the mouse instead. Something else.
Yeah. Well, I think it'll be up and coming. I think it's going to take a little and face it. It's going to be more expensive. So I think the Ocular Swift thing is really very interesting myself. I can't wait to try it out. That would be exciting. So basically, Virtual World's Best Practices is from April 5th through April 9th. And then, of course, on the 10th, we have...
No, it's from the 9th to the 12th. Surely.
Oh, thank you for correcting me on that. I've got notes here. No, I'm supposed to be over in the posters area. Sorry, and I'm looking at the wrong dates. So you caught me. Thank you for catching that.
We will be actually broadcasting the whole 5-day event. We'll be broadcasting the 7 keynotes. I was speaking to Felon and Letty last night. And we may have some special surprises in store as well. Plus, I am apparently hosting a machinima panel immediately after Philip's keynote. So maybe they'll hang around for me, or maybe not.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We love the machinima part.
Yeah. I forget who's on it. Val Librarian is one of them. I think the other two are probably education specific. But yeah, that should be interesting too. So yes, we're all gearing up for that event, and it should be absolutely great. I'll come back to you in a minute, Kelly. I'll go a candidate about other stuff. But the other person who's been very silent for a long while is our good friend Honor McMillan, who's over on the other side by Tara. Welcome again, Honor.
Thank you. I'm still here. I can be quiet.
Yeah, I know. The great thing about open-ended shows and chat shows like this is that we can all engage. But today it's been a sort of back to the old monologue thing to a certain extent. But how are things with you? You've obviously you're posting your regular destination blogs, but you've been posting quite a few from LEA too. You're much more involved with that at the moment, aren't you? So maybe
I am. They foolishly put me on the committee. But one of my major project this year, and I mentioned it early in January here on the show, was that a volunteer team. So if you can imagine, I mean, there's 29 sims of art at the Linden Endowment for the Arts, which is a lot. I mean, it's overwhelming. And some people will head in directly to a specific exhibit without realizing the rest of it is around there. The volunteer team is there to focus on the visitor experience, and it's evolving as things will. But right now we have a new welcome area on LEA 3. If you type into the map LEA 3, you can get there. Oh, sorry, lips. Apparently I forgot my lips. There we go.
We all
yeah, there we go. You'll see a small welcome area where often you will find a volunteer. We haven't even started advertising that they're there yet, but the team of over 40 volunteers now has put in over 100 hours in the first month of February, which was, I thought, extraordinary. Just, I mean, like I said, we're just getting our feet under our desks, so to speak. A park is appearing around the welcome area full of art. There will be a photo hunt based there with the regular photo hunt people who are going to work together with us on that. But if anybody is interested in joining the volunteer team, just contact me in Inworld. I run orientation and training every month. So unlike an event, this isn't just for a weekend or for a week. We'll be operating 12 months a year. It's very exciting. And there's a lot of great exhibits going on right now.
How do the volunteers work? Is it like they do shifts on the welcome sim? Or is it like are they dedicated to individual sims?
No, it's a variety of things. They volunteer as much time as they are interested in volunteering. So it could be an hour a month, Could be 3 hours a day. Some people are putting in a lot of hours. Our home base is on the welcome area on Leia 3, but we also support the artists at their opening events or at concerts they have or whatever events they have. We'll
Right.
be supporting the photo hunt as well. So whatever it is that comes up, as it comes up, we will support and get involved, and it's a lot of fun so far. So that's Leia. I have a couple of other things for you. I'm going to go back to something that Tara was talking about, which is the Freedom Project. I wanted to mention that.
Mm.
And again, the Freedom Project was it kicked off in September, and people were asked to make artworks or films, machinima, on the theme of freedom. And it's for people who self-identify as disabled or who know people who are, and what a difference the virtual world has made for them. If you go to Ziki Questie's blog, I mentioned it yesterday, but she's done a wonderful post today, and I'll put it in chat in the live stream.
Right.
She includes an excerpt from one man's story, which I thought I'd read for you. His name is Roman Gotti. He was a police officer, and 2 years ago, he was traumatically injured with a broken back, which is now held together with pins and rods. Subsequently, both his parents died within months of one another. Roman found himself lost, angry, and depressed. He sank into a deep, dark world, he writes. But over time, he began to discover photography and second life. Oh God, people keep talking to me. Stop talking to me.
Yes, I know that feeling.
Yeah. He began to discover photography in second life, and his work has helped heal his wounds. He writes that he began to look for the beauty in darkness to visually create what his inner soul was feeling. He said, I'm basically new to photography, but it's with my soul and emotions that drive me. And I think one of the things we forget, and I brought it up when we first started talking about Oculus Rift and the rest, is that 20% of the real life population has a physical disability, and that doesn't include the temporarily able-bodied who hasn't broken a leg or, slashed their arms. That is a much higher percentage inside Second Life. And we often forget about what kind of impact it can have on those who can't move around in real life, being in a virtual world. And so I suggest you go visit the opening ceremony is this afternoon at 5:00. And it is, whoops, I had it all set up so I could tell you. It will be on the UWA SIM, which is just UWA, 40107-248. And after the opening, obviously, the exhibit will be carrying on for a while after that. Two other things I wanted to bring to you, even though I'm not a shopper, I wanted to tell you
Let's
about.
just, I would just, for the sake of people watching this in replay who won't see the channel chat, I'll read out that blog address for after. It's Ziki Questie, that's ZIKIQUSTI.blogspot.com or .ca, wherever you, it's the same wherever you go, really.
Okay,
So if
you left out a U. You left out a U. It's ZIKIQUESTI.blogspot.com.
Yeah. Okay, carry on. Thank you.
Okay, two other things, even though we all know I'm not a shopper, I wanted to share these with you. One of them is Quark Fallen, who is a landscape architect. You may know him from his sim, which is simply called Leroy, which is a fabulous place to go visit. And I'm going to encourage you to go visit for not just to look around and explore it and admire all his works, but if Mo can catch it, I brought something with me today, which is called an ume tree. And Quark, if you join his Subscribe-O-Matic group, he sends out free gifts. I've never been able to find a store where he actually sells anything, but every now and then one of these free gifts appears, and they're just stunning. So if you want to get something like this ume tree or a Japanese cherry, which arrived this morning, which was far too big for the set, which is just stunning, do go to Leroy and check out Quark Fallen's work, because he's just superb. And my last item, I usually wear my favorite dragon skin, which you all are probably remember. But I went over to see Alpha Tribe today, which is where I got it. I'm addicted to Alpha Tribe skins. And the Alpha Hour is doing her sim. So if you've been to Alpha Tribe before, or even if you haven't, you need to go to the sim called Alpha Tribe, one word, and see the changes she's made. And in one area of the sim, she has a build called the Dot Matrix. And in honor of that, she just released a new skin, which I'm wearing. I thought I'd wear it in honor of Dot Matrix, the Dot Matrix skin. So that's a third place to go visit.
Great. Well, I've got some. While we're on destinations and things, I've got. I haven't actually opened up half these links, but some Alpha Tribe. I think we have a video later in the week in review coming up featuring Alpha Tribe. But we've certainly got a couple coming up on a build called Insanity, which I haven't been to, but maybe you have. I've certainly seen the video.
I have.
I've certainly seen the videos we're going to play, and it looks rather nifty.
It is. It's actually. I actually blogged it today. It's on Metalis, which is Rami Nair and Oops Haxis. We'll call it the gallery. They usually run. They will invite an artist to have a show for 2 months, and it's the current one by Cherry Manga, called Insanity. And it's actually a little disturbing, but it's beautiful as well. I found one image that brought me great hope, but much of it really does reflect the inside out view of somebody who has a mental illness, based on comments from friends of mine who have gone through this, the pain, the sense of imprisonment, the sense that you can't break away. The images are very reflective of those feelings. And it's a gorgeous image. It's a gorgeous build. It's a beautiful piece of art. But I'll just warn you, there's no pink mushrooms or purple mushrooms or fairies floating around. It's not that kind of build.
Bit on the dark side, but yeah, beautiful.
It's well worth visiting. Absolutely well worth visiting.
Great. Now I've got another one. I might as well promote this. I don't think they post as often as I'd like, but there's a blog called Virtual Geographic, all one word, .wordpress.com. And I don't know even how to start here, because their latest post is, I've got a video clip of this coming up later, and they've got a post with some gorgeous pictures of well, I guess it's a sim, but unfortunately I can't possibly pronounce this. It's Pirunika Pod Aniolami W Skirolorkach or something.
You have to speak Polish. You have to be able to speak Polish to pronounce it. It is a stunning sim. And everybody should go see it.
Yeah, built by Gotcha Merlin, I believe it's the name of the builder there. Yeah, I'm looking at the photographs, and it's it's diverse, colourful, and very photorealistic. At least on the photos I'm looking at. So good stuff there.
He designed it to reflect an imaginary town in northern Poland, but the idea was to make it as realistic as possible.
Well, from what I can see, it succeeded very well. A million happy endings.wordpress.com have a post on something called Little Village. It's I don't know
Seeker
if this is, it is Seeker Ghost, isn't it? Very, I know Tara would love this. Because all these strange, they're just like little villagey sort of houses and things. But there's one photo here where they're all sort of crooked and at odd angles. There's one that looks like it's about to fall off the cliff. It's got that wonderful sort of contrary sort of look to it.
It's a typical quirky Seeker Ghost build. It's very different from her previous ones. You might remember, like Rust.
Yeah.
But it's lovely, and the buildings seem to be toppling down the hill. They also seem to cuddle each other. It's a lovely little build.
Yeah. So definitely worth checking out that one. And I'm just checking here. The sim you want to look for is called Caramel, Caramel. And if you're into location hunting or just exploring, these are absolutely pretty cool. Right, oh, now we mentioned Ziki earlier. She had a blog up yesterday. Is it she or he, Ziki? It's a she, isn't it? Yeah.
It's a
Blog,
she.
yeah. I had a blog up yesterday about bright lights, dark shadows. This is more getting into. This is a gallery opening, if I remember rightly, at Arts. With photography by Bear Silvershade and Derry McMahon. Again, if I've got my pronunciations right. I'm getting a lot of Skype chat here. Oh, right, they're talking away, as usual. So if you're into galleries and stuff, some nice looking paintings and photos on that one. Scrolling down again. I mentioned earlier, I don't know where you've been to this one, Honor. I mentioned in my top thing, I put it in the wrong feed actually, the Gardens of Absentia, which is dedicated to cancer awareness and breast cancer fundraising.
It is. It also has a memorial area to those people who have been lost. So it's a lovely sim. It's a beautiful build. And if you go to Barry's strawberrysing.com, you'll find some gorgeous photos of it and a link to the sim.
Great. And the final one popping up here is Kara Second Life .blogspot.com yet again. Post from yesterday, basically beautiful weekend explores the forest garden, the pilgrim's dawn, and it all starts with a smile. Again, Kara is one of these people that just puts up gorgeous photographs and not always a great deal else, but you just look at them and drool and think, I've got to go there. So Pilgrim's Dawn is at a sim called Banana Island.
It's Banana Isle, and it used to be, a lot of people remember it as Pangloss.
Oh, yes.
Which was a beautiful sim and very pink, right?
Right.
So what has happened is Bowie Zeppelin received a commission from a client to do a different kind of landscape. And she's demoing it on her sim, Banana Isle. So it's very different from Pangloss. This is a realistic country sim with some really odd items thrown in. But based on the information I received from, I think, Quan Lavender, from Zeke, next month, which would be almost next week now, it will go back to being a Bowie Zeppelin special, so not for a client. And although it won't be the pink Pangloss we remember, it will be much more along that line. So if you want to see the Pilgrim's Dawn, you need to go now.
I am going to need to interrupt here because I'm hearing in the back channel that the audio on Skype is not coming through at all. So what I'm actually going to quickly do, if our viewers just give us a moment, we're going to be silent, and I'm going to quit the call we're on and recall everybody. So if all of us here want to hang up the Skype call, and then I'll quickly call us back in and see if we can get decent audio on it. So if we hang up now, if I can find the hang up button, there we are. Hello. Hopefully we're back. The real test is whether Emmo, who's recording our sound and everything else, can hear us. So I'm just looking in our Skype back chat to see if we've got any progress from Emmo. Skype seems to have been doing a few funny things today, actually. So, well, for the last several days, come to think of it, losing connections halfway through and things. Yep. Okay. We are back. So, everybody watching, welcome back. Sorry, we had a slight hiccup with Skype just a second ago. So, you witnessed a few moments or several moments of silence. I've been talking with Anna McMillan basically about events, locations and stuff that we had in the news. We're looking currently at a blog post from Cara2ndLive.blogspot.co.uk, which is wonderful weekend destinations basically. And you were telling us basically about. Actually, I've got the link down as Banana Island. Did you say it's Banana Isle?
Yes, I'm double
Pilgrims to on.
checking. I'm going
Yeah.
back into my thing and I'm double checking, but yes, I believe it's Banana Isle. Hold on a second. It is Banana Island. You're absolutely right. As always. So yes, Banana Island will change again in another week. So if you want to see the Pilgrim's Dawn, which is a gorgeous, realistic country scene, go now. And then starting some point early April, it will go back. It will change into something which might seem more like the builder of what we remember of Pangloss, the fantasy pink sim.
Pink. Yes. Pink.
Yeah, pink.
Just think pink.
That's right. So it won't go back to Pangloss, but it will become a new build, which will be more along the lines of something that Pangloss was.
Right. The Piscean is telling me I'm mumbling, so I better be clearer. You're getting old, lap. I can't help it if I mumble. Sorry. Also, this is a very thing. Every time I see reference to this location, I think it's an event, but there is actually a location called It All Starts With L, which was covered too, by somebody called Kaylin Electo, which you can find at Onyx Isle. This one is an isle, by the way, I think. ONYX space ISLE. You familiar with that one?
Yes, I am. And I think it's Kaylin's philosophy of life. So rather than an event. And she changes it quarterly, so for the seasons. And the current build is stunning, as the other ones have been. And it's a fun place to go. And you can find little places to hide and relax and look at scenery and ignore all the worlds around you.
Yeah, and again, the pictures look absolutely stunning. Okay, I do actually have so many links here. I don't think we're going to cover them all in terms of discussing every possible location. So I'd actually like to open up our conversation a bit, so to get us all involved in something a little bit before we start rounding up. I mentioned earlier that Bot Girl had a number of posts up this week, but earlier on, she has posted another link on Second Life advertising beyond bikinis and vampires. Now, the reason this has come up, and actually we didn't mention it at all at the top of the show, but Linden Labs seem to have refreshed their advertising during the last week. So during Second Life and do this, that, and the other. The little widgets they put at the side of their own site and on other people's sites, for that matter. And I think sexist is probably a rather apt word in some ways, but the ads, these little ads that are coming up, they've got a Second Life logo at the top. They show these bikini-clad women, very good photography, I hasten to add, almost photorealistic, and then make new friends around the world and play free. The emphasis on play. And I suppose, along with a few other people in the forums, have sort of questioned whether, how seriously are Linden Lab approaching this method of advertising the grid, the platform, because they're almost denigrating themselves a little bit by focusing on bikini-clad women and the idea of coming and playing and meeting people. And there's no sexual innuendo in this, but the undercurrent is there, just in the image, so to speak. So I was wondering how we sort of feel about this kind of thing in general.
What I find,
especially given that all three of our guests today are women, they might be quite pertinent. on it.
What I find oddest about this, just as a side note, I noticed these ads first in mid-February, and they would alternate with an ad which showed a girl and a guy, and it said, "Find your love in Second Life." So sex. And then there would be the bikini-clad girls, so sex and drooling, And a few of us mentioned it at the time. And what was interesting is that we mentioned it to Ebby on Twitter. And we said at the point we were trying to make was that, if this is the audience you're aiming for, it's no wonder the first question when people come in World is, where's the sex? So if, perhaps consider aiming for the audience, like those of us who actually enjoy Second Life and get something out of it. Anyway, he said at the time that he agreed with our point of view, and the ads disappeared, and now they're back. So I don't know if he lost the battle, or if he doesn't know, or if they just didn't have something to replace it, But we really did go around this about 6 weeks ago. We did, and they vanished for a while. But I guess you can't keep down a good bikini.
Or a good or an advertising agency, maybe.
There's three, from the news media perspective, there's three things that sell headlines, that bring in readers. Sex, violence, and money. And back when the Second Life was publishing all the economy statistics and new millionaires were being minted, it was on the cover of the magazines of, Anshi Chung making, her $1 million in Second Life. Money was the story. Money's not a story anymore. You don't have violence because it's not that kind of platform. It's not as fast, a fast Twitch kind of game platform. So that just leaves sex as the main selling point, sex and romance, depending on how you organize it. Saying, well, this is a great thing for productivity and meetings is just not going to bring in numbers of people,
But
your world, your imagination brought in an awful lot of people.
Yeah.
And there were no bikinis.
And is it necessary to play up, forgetting the symbolism for a second, meet people, not just find your date or have sex with somebody. Meet people in the virtual world, and also the button at the bottom says "Play Now."
Yes. Yes.
Which is totally the antithesis of what virtual worlds represent. I know you have games in Second Life, you have games everywhere, and games are fun, but it's not a matter of playing, it's a social platform. And I just think that's the wrong message to be sending.
Well, and I've got to tell you, Ebby did too at the time. So I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, or if
and
got
you never
on
know
a rotation, that.
So Tara, I was going to say, I wouldn't be surprised if they're stuck with a rotation that has already been bought.
Yeah.
And have not come up with creative yet to replace what clearly doesn't fly well with existing users. I would bet that there is an element of that. It's, on the other hand, yes, it's one of those unfortunate things and very irritating to a lot of us that using scantily clad female bodies to sell products still sells products.
Well, what's funny about that? Remember when you guys started off and you were talking about the was it Sony's new viewer, which when you add something on, I guess will follow your eye movement, right, which pretty much means boobs, right?
That's true. I thought,
oh hell, now I know exactly. Screens all over the world. Boobs.
Oh no.
Maybe I'm too old to be succumbed by it, but this sexist stuff is just not my. I think I'm in there. I don't want people to come in there chasing.
Yeah, but Mel, the demographic that Second Life is most likely to put its energy into are under 40 and probably under 30. So put yourself back a few years. I know how difficult that can be. I have the same problem, trying to put myself back to.
I would like to see Second Life sell itself more as a creative platform. That is, I think, is its strength. And with the Oculus and all these other things, you don't want to be a professional video game designer necessarily to create these environments. And Second Life and OpenSim does allow you to create these kind of environments in a very approachable way that anybody can create their own virtual world. I would love to see that sold. But on the sexism part, though, if you open up any women's magazine, one that's aimed exclusively towards women, the pictures are still full of naked women. I mean, everybody likes looking at naked women. Both men and women like looking at naked women. And I think there's just something biological to it. It is nice when they alternated with romantic ones instead of just the sexualized ones, but more of the romance instead of the sex part. But personally, I would like to see a focus on it as a world building platform, because that's why I got into it, for the sex. I'm not here for the I'm obviously not here for the violence. I'm here for the world building.
Yeah.
It would seem to me,
and I'll fight you to the death about it.
To put on a creative hat for a moment, that if you consider all the fascinating, not possible in real life, visual looks that people can have, and the things that people can build and do build, there is such a range of what I would just call it quirky. They could do some very quirky ads that would be very grabby because they're different.
Yeah.
Actually, I do see a lot of that because I admin like 12 different Flickr pools now, and they're most of them are, well, they all started off as Second Life specifically, but now they've been opened up to just virtual worlds. And there's a lot of advertising that gets posted there, and there are some really cute ideas there that I've seen, and it's like I'll invite them to certain groups that I have just because I think it's so clever. It's like, wow, what a concept, out of the box. Yeah. So that is happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I can see the sort of money, sex, and violence thing a bit, but I mean, when the Second Life used to advertise things like music, come in to go to a gig and things like that, which I thought was much more, all the different things, all the different things you can do in Second Life, and music is a big market. I mean,
music is awesome here.
It's not as, it's probably not quite as big as sex, but I mean, there are other things you can focus on.
Second Life real life jams now, where the live musicians that are in Second Life actually get together and jam in real life, and people go to see them.
Yeah.
So, and also on streetjelly.com now. I mean, it's just so cool what they're doing. So you can watch them in several places. But that's cool how that connects.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely a follower of a lot of musicians here. So.
Well, it's to say, there's a lot of the musicians I know and others I never heard of that actually put clips up on YouTube, and they're not machinima. They're actually sort of real world, clips of them performing in the real world, and even if it's just in local clubs or in their bedrooms or whatever. So it's, it's not exclusively to the virtual thing, but it reminds me of what Bot Girl has said in this thing. I mean, she said, well, what does the current banner ad state say about the audience Linda Loves is targeting? But then she goes on to say she'd like to see Linda Loud do a series of videos with RL users talking about why they love Second Life. In other words, make things viral on YouTube where real world faces are coming on camera and actually pointing out the different things that they do in Second Life and all the different interests. Maybe that just a suggestion, but I mean, you couldn't really make a banner out of that, banner ad, I should say, out of that tactic. But I mean, It just to me, they need to somehow, it's real world in a microcosm, and they need to encapsulate that utter variety, be it creative or consumer. So come to Second Life and go shopping if you want.
Exactly.
My sister does that.
Yeah, there are a million things that seem to attract people. I mean, I'm sure there's people in Second Life who don't do anything other than shop, and try on new costumes and stuff like that. So there is, there's just a huge variety of things they could.
But you have to have a party if you're going to go shopping so that everybody can see what you bought.
Yes, so come and party. That's, that's a bit.
Or go sailing or whatever. I mean, I love all the different communities here. There are so many different things to do.
Yeah.
And,
a
lot of people don't. Go on.
Go ahead. I was just one of the things I say to people who talk about how there's all this sex, and all you guys talk about is sex, and then the ads show sex in Second Life. And one of the things I'll say to them is, look, if you go visit San Francisco, or you go to the state of Indiana, right? There's sex there. There is.
Oh.
There's sex in those places. Now it may not,
everywhere.
and
life
there's
is a
sex,
sexually
but there's
transmitted
also
disease.
there's also shopping and theater and people living daily lives and people having dinner parties, and there's stuff to go look at because there's extraordinary architecture, and there's fields in Indiana, and there's all this other stuff. So going to the virtual world is like going to a virtual world. It's not going into a sex den. It's there. You don't have to see it if you don't want to. I certainly wouldn't advertise it as the reason to be here.
Yeah.
Well, I found it very interesting because I still mentor a little bit, and I was out roaming around one day, and I ran into this guy that happened to be right near a sex shop, and two people, of course, are demoing the stuff inside the store, and he asked me, he goes, "Is that all there is to this place?" And I'm like, "No." I said, "Do you want to go sailing?" And that's what I did. I took him sailing, then I took him over to some theaters, and I said, "There is so much here. Just open up search and put a keyword in there, and you will find out, something that you have an interest in." And it's just, people think that's, all that there is to it, and it isn't. There's so many different communities, and there's so many. Theater is the reason I came into Second Life. So, I mean, my sister dragged me in here kicking and screaming. I didn't want to come. I would have been here in 2006 if I had listened to her. So,
I definitely think they've got to get, just forgetting the sex ads and everything else like that. I mean, they've got to get away from this play idea.
Yeah.
I can understand how that would have been a predominant factor when we have Rob Vick, who comes from a gaming background and probably thinks play it. But I would hope that Ebbe is going to take it in guide it in a slightly more broad direction from the concept of play. And I've cited this I'm sure on this show before, but years ago I used to go to the Frankfurt Book Fair, which is in Frankfurt, obviously in Germany, annual sort of big event. Thousands of people there as an exhibition and as a sort of trade communication thing. And the moment you came out of it, you were in the red light district. Nobody ever suggested that the Frankfurt Book Fair should not happen at the big fairgrounds there just because the red light district was at the entrance. It's just life, I don't know which was built first. Maybe the red light came because of the fairgrounds, or maybe it was the other way around. But they're separate things, but it's real life. You walk round the corner from one place to another, and, the other place is something else. And,
Exactly.
As you said earlier, the virtual world is just like that. It's more so because, people get and they have different interests, and, you do get sim complexes, of course. But, if you're walking around the main, for example, as you cross the sim border, your environment may change totally, in a non-natural way. but you just live with it. You don't go to where you don't want to go to. If you step into the wrong place by mistake, you turn around, or even better, you can hit the teleport button.
Yep.
That is cool. I can't wait. I wish they'd have teleport in real life. I'm telling you.
Yeah. Oh, don't we all? Don't we all? Okay. Well, it was.
Well, we do have teleport in the RL sim, but things like getting from Seattle to London is an 18-hour trip as opposed to instant or nearly so. So if you want to see lag, try real world teleporting.
Yeah, try airlines or Skype.
That's exactly airlines.
I think we count Skype as lag today as well. Right. The other thing that vaguely relates to that, of course, is that who knows how often Linda and I are going to be publishing blog posts again, under new management or whatever. But of course, they published a post this week, which wasn't new news, but Lyndon put it up again this week on their site, which is the fact there's a UK company here actually looking for couples who've met in virtual worlds and are either have met and then got together in real life, or maybe met online and are still online, but they're dedicated partners and stuff like that. And this comment about these adverts, and then seeing that together with Lyndon Lab's sort of blog post about sort of this company is looking for people, which is a valid thing. It's a British TV company, a small one actually, presumably doing a documentary on virtual relationships. I haven't got the information to hand, unfortunately, but you can find it on the blog at Lyndon Lab if you're interested in partaking in that. So I saw that along with these adverts and thought, this is getting undue attention. Anyway, let's move on. We're nearing our sort of we're actually just coming after a 2-hour thing here, so I think we can start sort of rounding up. I'd like to go round everybody and see what else is happening. Let me start with you, Callie. I mean, anything exciting you've been doing in the past week, in the coming weeks that we haven't mentioned yet, or anything you're keen to promote, or anything like that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, as I said, I was into the theater thing, and gosh darn, you're going to make me have to look now. But there's a new sim up by somebody that I've done some shows with, and she's got everything. I mean, she's got a taxi that'll actually take you on a tour around her sim. And let me get the landmark for that. IMOOGI.TV Studios.
Oh, yeah.
And very amazing sim. Very amazing. A theater that reminds me of like the huge ones on Broadway. I mean, incredibly big with the orchestra pit and everything like that. And, it's unfortunate we have avatar limitations because it looks like it would hold a lot of people. And
I went there actually for their opening of the Be My Guest. They were showing some clips or whatever, and it took me I'd landed somewhere which wasn't directly outside the entrance, and I was looking at this magnificent build, trying to find the entrance to where I was meant to be going, and then I got in, found the right place, and then there were so many sort of theatrical foyer corridors to walk down before I could find the entrance to the actual theatre itself. And it was so detailed,
It is. That's amazing, and it's Philippia Thespian, I believe, is the owner of that sim, and she is really an amazing actress, and doing some really cool things here in Second Life. So that's really very cool. And then again, as I had mentioned earlier, we do also have the virtual tours coming up, and for Virtual World's Best Practices in Education on Open Sim Grid and in Second Life in a week. So if you're interested, you're a press member, or you just want to go for the experience of checking it out before everybody else, do get in touch with Lori Von Luster at LVLUSTRE@gmail.com. And so there's a lot of stuff always going on in Second Life, and I'm always getting notices, so I'm a little tongue-tied on what to say about that, because it's like I have to, I love that we have 40 groups now. Well, or for some viewers of 42, but I love that we have so many groups now because I can really get around and get involved in a lot of different things, and it's
every time
I can get lost here.
every time I get asked to join the group, it happened with a second BWBP one yesterday. Actually, I needed res permissions, so I had to join yet another group. And every time, even with 42, I haven't got any groups left, and I have to leave something.
Drop somebody. Yes, I know. I do that too.
What is great, we have a Metaverse Week in Review group on Google Plus, and various other people sometimes post other videos and things to it. And of course, you have the, I guess it's VWBPE group on Google Plus, and there are actually quite a lot of other ones.
You have to check yours out too.
Yeah, they all tend to interconnect. So, you can post from one group, so it appears in another group. And unfortunately, Google's ecosystem tends to be very into itself. In other words, I have great difficulty opening it on a pad and then finding a button that says tweet this or Facebook this. So, you can repost it to Google and not do much else. But within the Google framework, it's a very nice system, Google Plus. So people should check out that, I think.
I have a feeling that I've got plans for that too. All of these people are like on top of that kind of stuff. It's like, okay, what can we do next to connect?
Yeah.
And there's that word again. So
well, it's
perfect.
It's a funny thing with online services. Google are sort of an old standby there, but it's a great service, but it doesn't quite link to other things yet. Facebook tried that for a while, although Twitter never did. And the walled garden, the silos can't really last. You've got to allow people in them to connect to other services. That's how things get viral, and of course the traffic comes back to you. So we'll see. Okay, exciting things planned and gone by. Honor. Anything we haven't covered yet that is new?
Yeah, there's one more thing I wanted to share with you. People often ask how I find Sims, and there's a lot of different ways, but I have a new tool that I wanted to share. It's called the Community Cultural Hub. It's Inworld, and it's administered by two people from the Virginia Society for Technology and Education. And it's a resource directory of ethnic, cultural, and historical communities. It's for use by educators. However, they don't check you if you go in. So we can actually use it as well. The hub, seriously, it's on a sim called Blue Moon, and the coordinates are 37-22123. And the first place
awesome.
The first place I went to see was a place, role-playing sim for Meiji, Japan. So if you go into it, there are posters, and they're categorized like art or role-play. And if you go up to the second floor, they have documented interviews with the people from the various sims. You can also apply to have your sim included in the directory, which for a lot of communities would be a very good idea. So if you're looking for new places to explore or maybe a new community to join, I'd go check out the Community Cultural Hub on Blue Moon.
Well, that's great. Just hum the song. I love that.
That's right.
Never mind. You're not going to get that out of me. Yeah, great. Actually, that's great. That sounds like a great focus too, because if it's education driven, then they're going to, it's going to be nice. I imagine this is going to be really, good, serious, real life, historical simulation.
Another little note on Blue Moon is they're doing an art underwater. So they're looking for entries. So if you like to take pictures, definitely submit them.
Cool.
Okay, great. We're getting a bit of noise on your on your connection there. The Skype playing up again. Okay, underwater shots and everything. Okay, Blue Moon. I'm going to remember that because of the song. Okay, let's come back to Maria then. Anything else we didn't get covered earlier? Anything exciting you're doing this week or have done?
Well,
How did your presentation go? By the way, it was Boston, wasn't it, a couple of weeks ago?
No, it's still coming up. It's coming up in, I think, April.
Oh, right. And it's a similar theme to the keynote you're giving at
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Now, so what I'm working on this week is a big project. It's a list of all the free land you can get in OpenSim. And I've got about 20 grids already where you can go and get anything from the size of a small parcel or a home or a store, all the way up to a full region or a dozen regions or an entire grid for free for as long as you need it.
Oh,
Seriously?
Yes. And so some of
Wow.
them have requirements like you have to be an educator. Some of them have requirements like you have to be a creative person, but most of them, the only requirement is you just have to show up. And you have to keep showing up in order to keep it.
yeah.
And the
That makes
reason that
sense.
grids are doing this, well, some of them are doing it because they have funding and they're giving stuff away to particular causes. But most of them are doing it because it's a cheap way to promote the grid. Giving away a small parcel in OpenSim is a really low cost thing. And once you get somebody in, they might quickly decide that a small parcel isn't enough for them and they might want to trade up to a region.
Yeah.
And so it's a very low cost marketing thing. So I have contacted all the grid owners and I asked them to explain their policies to me. And I am currently in the process of putting together this giant PDF with all the pictures and all the destinations and everything else. It's a glossy kind of thing, big brochure. And so that's going to be coming out in like a week or two. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Wonderful. That sounds exciting.
Excellent,
You know,
excellent resource.
I'd like to see Hyperion do a thing like that too, just a general destination. Sky, you must have quite a lot in that database by now.
Yeah. They used to have something like that here as well. Do they still have that? I think it was Blue Pill Voyeur or something like that. Used to have a destination guide.
There are a few, but I don't know really. There are a few blogs. They're actually the ones that I tend to tweet, which like honors tend to have a lot of destinations and things in them.
This was an actual HUD that you would wear, and it would tell you like the new things that came up, and you could just click on the HUD and TP to it.
I
So
don't know. Yeah, I know.
teleport.
Yeah, I've got quite a few HUDs that do that kind of thing, but firstly you got to be wearing them for them to work, and then
That's true.
and secondly they tend to be closed databases. There's not really. I know Will Burns was working on one that was meant to be a travel system, but he hasn't shown for a while. I heard any progress on that.
I think Will may have withdrawn progress given the status of the terms of service.
Oh. Yeah, that old story too, of course. Yeah, yeah, and his I know he.
I could be wrong about that because of the brunt of what runs it is off outside of Second Life, what they were doing. But
yeah, I think it was his own database server, as it were, that was controlling it. Interesting. Well, hopefully we'll hear more about that. So we'll have to check up the destination HUDs, and actually HUDs is something I haven't looked at for a long while. There's so many of them these days. I tend to go for the camera ones and forget everything else. Right. Okay. So that's good. There was something else I was going to. Oh yes, yeah. I was just going to suggest you do a glossy PDF of the Hyperion destinations as well. Because there must be quite a few in there by now, Maria.
Oh, they grow too fast. So there's right now there's something like 8,000 hypergrid enabled destinations. So it's
yeah. The moment you publish a guide, there's 8,000 new ones.
Yeah,
and a bunch of the ones that are in there have vanished into the digital nether regions.
Yeah, every month we're having to go through and see if they're still active or not. Because the thing is, when you have destinations pointing to individual regions, they move around a lot. That's why this PDF is it's aimed at entire grids, which move a lot slower than regions.
Yeah, I have a. I had better go and check it since OS Grid's had its cleanup, actually. I mean, I'm typical. I have a small parcel about this size, which is a studio on OS Grid, which I actually only took. Again, it's for free or somewhere. I took it at the time of the conference last year. I think we might might need to go away from the main event, but it didn't get used. they probably deleted me by now for not using it, but we'll see. Okay, Tara, any closing?
Well, I seem to have been in a little bit of an acquisition phase of running across some cool new plants and trees and stuff. So I think that's kind of going to be my Inworld focus, and of course that's what's taking place in the RL Sim as well. I'm getting into the refurbishment of the planters and what have you on my deck, which got rebuilt last fall, and so now I have to move all the planters back and do soil and start planting things. So that's going to keep me more than just a little amused this week.
Yeah, all the veggies for the summer. Okay, well, I think we've probably been on air long enough, unless anybody else has got any last-minute comments. As usual, we haven't covered everything that we possibly could, but there's time limits to everything. I'd like to thank you all for watching. Like to thank AView TV, by the way, who are now collaborating with us to help sponsor the actual filming. And you can see their logo behind us. I'll mention once again, by the way, that you can see this show in replay on the new site called slartist.com. That's SLARTIST.com, which features, unlike AView, which runs it, it actually features a sort of principal machinima and shows from Second Life in a slightly different format. And yes, just watch it replay on the HUD and everything else. We will be back, same time, same place next week. Virtual World's Best Practices in Education will be coming closer and closer, so we'll probably be focused back on that again to a certain extent. Meanwhile, I'd like to thank Tara as always. Thanks, Tara. And I'd like to thank
More than welcome.
I'd like to thank our guests, Honor McMillan. Thank you, Honor.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Hope to see you again soon. Thank you very much, Callie. Hope to have you back again soon. It's been your first time, so I hope you've enjoyed it and we haven't been too intimidating.
Very much. No, not at all. Not at all. I've learned a lot here. It's really been exciting. Thank you.
Right. Well, hopefully we'll have you back soon, and especially with BWP coming up. And thank you to Maria.
Thanks. Always fun being here.
Yeah, I think you should be here every week. There is more and more news every week, actually. And you know, it's astonishing the amount coming from Open Sims as well as Second Life now. So great stuff. Okay, well, thank you all. And with that, we'll log out for this week. And if you're watching us live as part of the Metaverse Week in Review, there are, of course, massive amounts of clips coming up, just cold stuff, arts, performance, places, and even a little bit of lifestyle. We actually have 3 mini editions all in a row of Happy Hunting for some reason, and quite a lot of places. And we have a long-form performance from Cypress Rosewood, which is about a 50-minute clip later on in the performance section. So do keep the channel on, even if you just wander around with it in the background, because some great music and visuals coming out there. And on that point, I'm going to switch tabs in the studio, and I'm going to press the button that says resume the program. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you again next week.
Wonderful.